Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into something absolutely huge today, mastering your own mind. It's one of those things that sounds fantastic in theory, right? But actually pulling it off? That's a whole different story. We're going to look at the mind-blowing real-life story of a guy who actually lived this out under literally the most extreme circumstances you can imagine. So let's just pause for a second. I want you to sit with a really heavy question. What would you do if you woke up tomorrow and you had absolutely nothing? If literally everything you rely on for your identity and your security was just wiped out. Imagine losing every single penny to your name. Your bank account's empty, all your physical possessions just gone. Now imagine losing your good name, the respect of your peers, your social standing, the way people look at you when you walk into a room. All of it gone.
Think about losing all those basic physical comforts we completely take for granted every single day. A warm bed, a safe home, even just the simple ability to rest.
And finally, imagine losing your freedom, the sheer ability to choose where you go, what you do, or who you hang out with. Now let's be real, most people, and understandably so, would completely break under the crushing weight of that kind of total deprivation. They'd just crumble. But there was one historical figure who didn't break. His name was Epictetus, and instead of breaking, he went on to become one of the greatest Stoic philosophers in human history. His story is absolute proof that true freedom has literally nothing to do with money, status, or power. Section 1. A life without freedom. Okay, let's dive right into this. Imagine being born into literal slavery. Born around 50 AD in the Roman Empire, Epictetus belonged to a super powerful official. Every waking second of his life was dictated by somebody else. So while other wealthy philosophers were out there lounging in these beautiful, sun-drenched villas debating abstract ideas, Epictetus had zero physical freedom. None. Most people would have become incredibly bitter. But as you'll see, Epictetus made a radically different choice.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that Epictetus realized something absolutely extraordinary. He saw this hard boundary between his physical body and his internal mind, right? Yes, his body was legally owned by someone else, but his mind? His mind belonged entirely to him. Nobody, absolutely nobody, could control his thoughts or his ability to choose his response. And this realization basically became the bedrock of his entire philosophy.
Section 2. The moment of pain. To really understand his absolute, unwavering belief in this, we have to look at a highly visceral moment where his philosophy was brutally put to the test. One day, his master, in a horrific fit of cruelty, grabbed Epictetus's leg and began to twist it violently, putting more and more physical pressure on it. As this excruciating pressure built up, Epictetus didn't scream. He didn't beg for mercy. He just looked right at his master, chillingly calm, and said, "You will break it." He was completely, entirely devoid of panic. But the master didn't stop. He just kept twisting. And eventually, with terrifying inevitability, the bone snapped. Epictetus didn't lose his mind. He simply looked at his master and said, "Didn't I tell you it would break?" I mean, wow, this story has survived for thousands of years because it perfectly hits the nail on the head of what Stoicism actually is. Pain is unavoidable. We're all going to face it. But suffering is totally optional. He couldn't control what happened to his physical body, but he retained absolute, ironclad control over his internal reaction. When faced with absolute agony, instead of panic, he chose calmness. Instead of blinding anger, he chose sharp clarity. Instead of falling into victimhood, he chose undeniable strength. That is Stoicism in its purest form, right there. It's the total refusal to let external circumstances dictate your internal state. Section 3. The Stoic Secret. Even when he gained his physical freedom later in life, Epictetus didn't really change because he already possessed true inner freedom. And that brings us to the absolute core of his teachings, the dichotomy of control. It sounds fancy, but we're going to break it down. It basically divides the entire world into two distinct categories, things we can control and things we cannot. And this brilliantly illustrates that divide. On one side, what is actually within your control? Well, your thoughts, your actions, your choices, and your attitude. That is your domain. On the other side, what's completely outside your control? Other people's opinions, the weather, the economy, you name it. But here's the kicker. Most people spend their entire lives agonizing over that second list, things they have absolutely zero power to change. So the crucial point is perfectly captured right here in this quote by Epictetus. If you focus only on what is yours to control, no one can ever truly harm you. I mean, just think about how much of our daily stress comes from worrying about if people like us or if our carefully laid plans might get derailed by some random bad luck. Stoicism teaches us to just drop those heavy burdens, not because those things don't matter, but because worrying about them is a completely futile use of your mental energy. It literally changes nothing and only breeds constant, exhausting anxiety.
Section 4. Lessons for Modern Life.
Let's move forward and see how this builds into our lives today. We obviously don't live in ancient Rome, but we've all got our daily battles. Let's map this philosophy right onto our modern anxieties. First up, job loss. The normal reaction? Catastrophic panic. But the Stoic pauses and asks, okay, what remains under my control? The answer is your effort and your next step. Next, an online insult. Normally, we get super emotional, but the Stoic realizes the other person's opinion belongs to them, but your response belongs strictly to you. Finally, facing failure. We normally see it as a crushing defeat. The Stoic, they see it purely as training. It's a total game changer for how we face adversity.
Section 5. The ultimate choice. Epictetus started with absolutely nothing, yet he's remembered as a total legend strictly because he mastered himself. This right here is the ultimate thesis of his life, and honestly, the greatest takeaway from this explainer. You cannot control everything that happens to you. Life is chaotic, it just is. But you can always, without fail, control how you respond. And it is entirely within that response where your true freedom lives. So I want to leave you with a real practical tool. The next time life throws something incredibly difficult your way, remember Epictetus. Remember the man who found absolute freedom long before his physical chains were ever unlocked. And ask yourself this one provocative question: what is within my control right now? Focus all your energy on that. Let go of the whole rest of the shebang. I promise you'll find a profound peace that no external circumstance can ever take away from you. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. If you enjoyed this dive into the source material, keep exploring these ideas. Until next time, stay calm, stay strong, and live like a Stoic.